everybody, I'm Jonathan Randall, and this is How You Like Me Now. I hope everybody's doing well. I missed you guys. I was on my Colombian adventure, and I had the most amazing time. I tried to disconnect while I was away. I wasn't really on social media. I wasn't doing the podcast, but I appreciate everybody who is supporting me, who does listen to the podcast. Thank you. I was traveling all around Colombia by myself, having an adventure, having an experience, and it was amazing. I started out in Cartagena, and I did some ATVing on the beach, and I explored the old city and some parks and this incredible fort that they have there. And then I made my way to Barranquilla, which was really intense. I was like the only tourist there. I tried to go to the downtown area. I saw this beautiful church there, and there were so many like different little like markets and everything. And I was trying to walk around, and I was like the whitest person. I've never felt so white actually in all my life, and it was kind of intense. Nobody spoke English. My Spanish is no bueno, and at one point someone started screaming out, "Americano, Americano," and I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And from there, I went to Santa Marta, which is a cool little chill beach town. From there, I went to Tanganga, I think it's called. I don't know. I can't say any of the places right. I feel like the biggest idiot in the world. I went scuba diving there. Beautiful little fisherman's village on the beach. So chill. I had this cool hotel that had this amazing like hammock all the way up on like the roof's roof. And I like not the roof, like on top of the roof, they had another structure and they had a hammock up there and it overlooked the whole beach. And it was absolutely incredible. I was just chilling out there like for so long. Like that was one of my favorite spots of my whole trip, as crazy as it sounds. And from there I went to Minca, which was in the mountains. It's this beautiful place, surrounded by nature. I did this incredible hike all the way up this mountain to see this 360 view of Santa Marta and Tanganga, and it was just incredible at sunset. It was so amazing, and I was checking out all these waterfalls, and I was just like loving being in nature, and most of the time I was like all by myself. It was so incredible. Of course, one day I like found this amazing spot in between like some waterfalls on this rock, and I was just chilling. I was the only one there. It was so peaceful. I was just like enjoying the sounds of the river and nature and birds, and I was like, this is amazing. This is like the best part of my trip. But then the next day I was covered in sandfly bites, and it was horrible. It put a little bit of a damper on my trip, not too much, but it definitely like was like this thing with like, that's what life is about, you know? You can't really judge an experience when you're having it till after, whether it's good or bad. You know, there's that old Japanese proverb, I've mentioned it before, I believe, you know, about the guy and his horse ran away, and everyone in the village was like, oh, that's so horrible. And he's like, we'll see. And then the next day his horse came back with a bunch of wild horses, and they're like, oh my God, that's so awesome. And he's like, we'll see. And then the next day his son was trying to tame one of the wild horses, and he fell off the horse and broke his leg, and they're all like, oh, that's so horrible. And they're like, we'll see. And then the next day the army came to recruit his son to take him off to war, but he couldn't go because he had a broken leg. And you know, it goes on and on like that. Like, you know, you never really know whether something's going to be good or bad, or what kind of impact it's going to have on your life. It's a great lesson, a great life lesson, really. And I had that, of course, when I was in Minca. The Minca mites is what I call them. And then from there, I went to Tayrona National Park, which was just incredible. I went to this place called Playa Brava, which was this like beach. You had to hike through the park about like an hour and a half. And I took a motorbike an hour and a half. And then I got to this beach. There was like not a lot of people there. It was so pristine. It was so peaceful. I had this amazing little hut on the beach. I loved it so much. I wish I could stay there longer. And then I explored the rest of Tayrona National Park before going to Palomino, which was a cool little hippie beach town. While I was there, I went tubing, which was just magnificent. One of my favorite experiences of my whole trip. I saw so many cool birds. It was so relaxing. I had this amazing guide who was making it like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Like he'd be like, oh my God, we're about to hit like a tree. And he's like, no, we're not. And he would go the different way. He really went the extra mile. I really loved him. I stayed in this really cool hotel. Like from my shower, I saw toucans. It was incredible. And from there, I ended up flying to, I went back to Santa Marta. And from Santa Marta, I flew to Medellin. Spent a couple days there. And then I went to Bogota for a couple days before going back to Miami for a couple days. Of course, that's where I'm from. I had the most amazing trip. I was trying to be good on my trip, There's a lot of prostitutes in Colombia. I'm not really all about the prostitute life. I considered it when I was in Colombia because I'm like, I'm in Colombia. Maybe this is what I got to do. Maybe this is my chance to try having a prostitute experience. But it's funny because like all the hotels there, like when you check in, they're like, no prostitutes, which I would be really insulted anywhere else if like you checked in a hotel and they're like, don't get prostitutes, you creepy, sleazy man. But in Colombia, I guess because it's so rampant, it makes a little more sense. But I was like, I don't want prostitutes. I'm looking for real girls. And I was getting like approached by so many prostitutes, but then like I'd smile at like another Colombian girl who wasn't a prostitute, and I felt like I thought she was a prostitute. I was like, you can't win here, but I didn't get any prostitutes. Of course, cocaine in Colombia. At first I was like, I'm not gonna do any, but then unfortunately I got some sad news while I was in Colombia. My grandmother passed away. She was over 100 years old and I loved her dearly, but once she passed away, it was on. I was doing cocaine, I was getting weed and weed brownies. I just was having even a better time on my trip. No regrets. I mean, you go to Colombia, you got to do a little bit of Colombian coke. Anyways, I had the most amazing adventure. It was very sad that my grandma died, but she lived a really long life. Most people don't live to be 100. I think like 1% of the population lives to be that old. So, it's hard to be too upset. She was so good to me, one of the most generous people in my life. She showed me a lot of the finer things in life. She bought me my first camera. She was a huge supporter of my comedy career, came out to all my shows. I loved her dearly. I wanted to go back to Florida. I knew she wasn't doing that well and see her before she passed. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. And I'm kind of happy I didn't. The last time I saw my grandmother was at her 100th birthday party. It was more of like a happy affair. She was in better spirits than when she was laid up in the hospital, on her way out, unfortunately. I mean, my cousin actually sent me a picture, and I wish she didn't. I did not need to see my grandmother like that. But after my Colombian adventure, I did stop in Florida to go visit her grave. A little unhappy about her grave situation, actually. My father wanted her to have like an Orthodox burial, but she wanted to be buried in like this beautiful mausoleum by like a waterfall. But my father insisted in this Orthodox burial, and and it's ugly, it's horrible. She would not like that, and I hate that my dad did that. I wish my dad would have let her be buried like where she wanted to, the way she wanted to, and not interfered because of his religion. But he always does this. It made me wonder, like, when he dies, should we bury him the way like we want to and just burn his ashes and spread him in a pig farm because he's disgusting? Probably not going to do that, but the thought did cross my mind. But it sucks that my grandmother is no longer going to be part of my life. Of course, she'll always be in spirit. I have such fond memories of her. But it's hard to say goodbye. She was one of the first, actually. I'm lucky. I'm so lucky that she's one of the first really close people to me that has passed away. It's unfortunate and it's sad. And, I love you, Grandma. If you could listen to the podcast wherever you are, I hope you do. I hope you will. But it's been a lot the last, couple weeks with my grandmother passing, my amazing Colombian adventure. I mean, travel, get out there. It was one of the first big trips that I did all by myself. A lot of people were like, is it hard to travel by yourself? Like, how do you feel? It was awesome. I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted to do it. I did it at the pace I wanted. And it really kind of made me fall even more in love with myself. I know it's probably, weird to say, but it did. My friend Dante, my dear friend Dante Nero, who's an amazing comedian and podcaster, definitely check him out. He always says to me, you're dope and you do dope shit. And I felt that way so many times on the trip. And I had a really amazing time, and I recommend everybody go on adventures by themselves and explore, and I hope I could do more exploring of the world. That was the 30th country that I have been to, and I definitely want to, go to more. It makes me feel alive, experiencing different cultures, trying different cuisines, meeting different people, which I did. I was actually on a bus. I went on a day trip out of Medellin to this place, Watabe, this beautiful village. They have this rock there that has 750 steps to climb up, which I did. I live on a 6th floor walk up, so I was like, I've been training for this my whole life. And I went up there and I saw the whole village, and the area there is just stunning. It's so beautiful. I was like, I want a house here. And then I went to the town, which is so cute. It's colorful in the way things are painted, and they have all these decorations on the buildings with different themes, and from cartoon characters to people and animals. Anyways, this place was super cute. I really was happy happy that I went there. And on the way back, I was taking a bus back to Medellin, and the bus, like, they give you like a seat, like you're supposed to sit at the seat that they give you, but there was like some guy sitting in my seat, and like I didn't want to, like, my Spanish is horrible. I didn't want to like be like habla inglés and make a big deal, so I just sat next to him. But then halfway through the trip, I realized that the guy was Israeli, and I became enraged. I was like, oh, Israelis always taking things that aren't theirs and feeling entitled to just do whatever they want. So I was gonna like make a stink about it, but I was just like, oh, I'm not in the mood to get in a fight with this guy right now in the middle of Colombia. But when I left, I made sure to tell him, free Palestine. Unfortunately, a lot of horrible things happened while I was away when it comes to Palestine and Israel. One good thing is thousands of Israelis are protesting, the new extremist government, what Netanyahu plans to do with his judicial reforms, which is good. I'm glad about that. I wish they would protesting more against the flagrant human rights violations of the Palestinians. There was a horrible incident with Israeli settlers in the Palestinian village of Huawra, where like hundreds of Israeli settlers rampaged through this town in what many are calling a pogrom. They killed a guy. They injured over like 350 Palestinians. They burnt houses and cars and businesses. Really disgusting, not in the spirit of Judaism at all. Absolutely atrocious and horrible. And then what's even worse is then a week later, yesterday, when it was Purim, apparently they went back and they were terrorizing the village again. They accosted like a family of 5. And there's video to prove all this. This is all so horrible. And this isn't new. I think this year is settlers violence. There's like 3 instances of settler violence every day. That's what Palestinians are living with. And I believe 5 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli settlers. This happens all the time. The only silver lining I see to what happened in Huawra is it's raising more awareness that this is going on. And this is something that the Palestinian people are suffering from Israeli settlers being backed by the Israeli military, which is absolutely crazy. And what's even crazier is I think this has really showcased some of the hypocrisy about what's going on with Israel and Palestine, because, 2 Israelis, settlers, though I guess were on their way to an Israeli settlement, were killed. And apparently this was like, the tipping point for why this riot, this pogrom happened. And, when you bring up what happened in Huawra right now, so many people want to quickly somewhat justify it by saying, well, it was just an act of revenge because of, the 2 Jews that were murdered, the 2 brothers, which is horrible. I am against the murder of anybody. I speak out against violence all the time. But I think it's just crazy hypocritical that people want to justify this riot of almost 400 Israeli settlers in this town because 2 Israelis were killed, when they can't even fathom the fact that all the violence that happens, from Palestinians against Israelis is revenge because of the nonstop oppression, violence, occupation, displacement that the Palestinian people face. Like, they can't even enter their head. They can't even say oh, well, maybe that's why it's happening. But when Jews are the ones that are committing the atrocities, when they are the terrorists, when I shouldn't say Jews, I should say Israelis, because that's what they are. I'm so sick and tired of people conflating Jews and Israelis. Well, we're not the same, all right? Israelis is one thing and being Jewish is another thing. Yes, Israelis are Jewish, but not all Jews are Israeli, and we certainly do not support or back what the state of Israel is doing, the new government, and absolutely not what these deranged terrorist Israeli settlers are doing, okay? So these Israeli settlers, that was terrorism, what they did in this town, in Huawra. It's absolutely atrocious. And so people are so quick to justify that because of the murder. But there have been, I think, over 60 murders of Palestinians so far this year, and that's just this year alone. And the violence that Palestinians face on a daily basis from both Israeli settlers and the Israeli military is just horrible and disgusting. And that's why I speak out. And I hope one day we will have a free Palestine. And I think, a lot of Jews, especially American Jews living in the diaspora, really got to take a hard look at themselves, what's happening in Israel right now, and that they are willing to justify the violence of Huawra because, 2 Israelis were killed, but, they won't even let the possibility of the only reason why there is violence and they were killed is because of revenge for the way Palestine is treated by Israel. Anyways, that was a mouthful and then some. Of course, it's just crazy. The messages I get from Israelis, the hate that they spew, the misinformation that they have, the propaganda that they're so quick to dismiss any of the reality. Like, I made a video about what happened in Huawra, about settler violence, and just to see so many Israelis be like, oh my gosh, the lies, you're a self-hating anti-Semitic Jew. It's just like crazy. Like, nothing I said was false. Like, it was probably one of my truest videos that I've ever made. That's easy to be backed up. All you need is a Google search, but like, they are just so brainwashed and so filled with hatred, and it's really sad. And just before I came here, some ladies commenting about, in Palestine you can't be gay. And yes, it's very unfortunate, some of the stances towards the LGBT community in Palestine. But whataboutism, that doesn't mean that like Israel should just be able to like wipe Palestinians off the face of the earth. And Israel isn't they are very progressive when it comes to LGBTQ, but they have political parties that are like very against it. There's this guy now who actually said, this minister of finance, who said that, Huawra should be wiped off the face of the earth. He is a proud homophobe. He's compared gay people to bestiality. There are other political movements. I think one's called Noam that's very anti-LGBT. So first of all, whataboutism is lame and stupid and really has no place in the argument. But still, it's like, don't be calling that out, and that doesn't justify any of the violence that Israel does against Palestine. And there have been gay pride parades where extremist Israelis have stabbed gay people. So let's just like slow our roll with like trying to bring that up to justify the violence towards Palestinian people, because it's really disgusting. It's really atrocious. But I'm back in New York right now. I'm gonna head to a comedy show shortly. I'm really excited to be doing stand-up again. I hope, if you're listening, you are a supporter of my comedy career and not just of my stance on Palestinian human rights. I love doing comedy. I missed it. This will be my first show since I've been back, and I am so excited and thrilled to be hitting the stage at Stand Up New York, one of the clubs that has been best to me and so supportive. So go see a show there. Go see me there. I got a bunch of shows coming up this month, so hit me up on social media if you want to come see them. Want to talk a little bit about nerding out right now to change the subject. Mandalorian Season 3. Amazing. I only watched the first episode, but it is so good. It's so captivating. It's such a great addition to the Star Wars universe. And the show is so good that like I was catching up on some of the other shows that I missed while I was away. And I was like, these shows suck. Like in comparison to The Mandalorian, like The Mandalorian is such a good show that it makes you realize that other shows that you're watching completely suck. So check it out on Disney Plus. I'm looking forward to watching the next episode either, later tonight or tomorrow. I don't know, but it's an awesome show. Back in New York, I feel like I'm feeling really good about myself and my life, and I'm feeling really positive, and I'm really excited about what's to come right now, both with my comedy and creative career, my podcast, and, as naive as it sounds, I'm not trying to have like Nelson Mandela complex or, be the white savior, but I do want to have a positive impact on the world, especially when it comes to Israel and Palestine. I've talked about this before, but I think it's important for the Jewish people to speak up and to stop the oppression and the occupation. I want there to be a Palestine in Israel living in peace and prosperity. We are the same people. We come from the same land. We are cousins, and we really got to stop fighting. This actually week's Bible portion, Torah portion, is about the golden calf. When Moses came down with the commandments and he found the golden calf, and I've said this many times before, I think Israel is the modern day golden calf, and I think too many people are worshiping it and forgetting the true values of Judaism, such as love thy neighbor. Anyways, I really appreciate everybody for checking out and listening to or watching this. Check me out across social media at Jonathan Randall. I'm Jonathan Randall. How you like me now?